There comes a moment in every life when a silent truth hits you. You are not tired. You are not broken. You are simply asleep while your life is happening. You wake up every day, repeat the same thoughts, follow the same patterns, and call it your personality, when in reality, it's just your programming. But today, right now, something inside you is stirring. A small spark, a whisper, a rebellion, because a deeper part of you knows you were never born to live on autopilot. You were born to command your mind like the 1% do. And the moment you take back that command, your entire destiny changes. A cold stillness hangs in the air as the world turns quietly beneath you. You sit alone with your thoughts, unaware that most of them aren't even yours. They are echoes, rehearsed patterns, loops you never chose. You feel them before you see them, the way your hand reaches for your phone without thought, the way your mind wanders into the same worries, the same memories, the same invisible prison of repetition. It feels normal. It feels familiar. But somewhere deep beneath the noise, something whispers, "This is not you." You sense it like a faint light behind a locked door, a pull, a calling, a reminder that life wasn't meant to feel like a long corridor of recycled days. You begin to notice how automatic everything has become, the words you repeat, the habits that guide you, the choices you never question. There is a heaviness in that realization, yet also a strange freedom, because the moment you see the cage, you're no longer fully inside it. You take your first conscious breath in a while, not a shallow one, not the kind your autopilot delivers. A real breath, slow, present, a breath that belongs to someone who is awake. And as that breath moves through you, something shifts, a subtle crack in the machinery, a moment of awareness sharp enough to cut through the fog that has coated your mind for years. You look at your life with unfamiliar eyes. It feels as if you've been sleepwalking through opportunities, drifting past chances that needed your attention, ignoring the quiet voice inside that kept urging you to rise. There is a sense of mourning in this awareness, but also an unmistakable spark of power, because only the few, the rare few, ever realize they're on autopilot, and even fewer decide to break out. You start to feel the weight of responsibility returning, but not as a burden, as a crown. You remember something you once read or heard, perhaps from a voice like Napoleon Hill's, "The mind, like a muscle, grows powerful when you command it." Those words echo now with new meaning. You begin to see that your future is not shaped by your talents or your circumstances, but by what you repeatedly allow yourself to think. And for the first time in a long time, you decide to interrupt the loop. You straighten your posture. Your breathing deepens. Your awareness sharpens. It feels like dust being swept from ancient controls, switches, levers, circuits inside your mind that you forgot existed. You are not fighting your thoughts. You are observing them, watching the patterns as they surface: urge, distraction, doubt, comfort. You notice how quickly they try to pull you back into the old script, but this time you don't follow. You hover above them, detached, almost amused. This is the first step, the awakening, the precise moment a person goes from reacting to directing. A shift so small the world won't notice, yet so powerful your entire destiny will feel it. And somewhere inside, a quiet truth rises. You were never meant to be a passenger in your own mind. This is the moment you take the wheel back. The world around you continues its motion, but something inside you has paused. It's as if you're standing just outside your own life, watching the patterns that once controlled you unravel frame by frame. You begin to see the truth that most people never dare to face. Nothing changes until awareness shatters the illusion. And now, with the first crack in your old programming, the second chapter begins the confrontation. You feel it the moment you wake the next morning, that slight resistance, that tug of comfort pulling you back into old rhythms. Your mind tries to restart the familiar script, the rush, the distraction, the unquestioned habits, but you don't move. Not yet. You lie still, listening, observing. You watch your thoughts like cars passing on a distant road, each one carrying an old version of you: the anxious one, the distracted one, the one who scrolls before breathing, the one who lives on autopilot because it feels easier. But today, you aren't climbing into those vehicles. You're standing on the side of the road, letting them pass. And with every thought you refuse to identify with, you grow a little stronger, a little clearer. a little more aware of what and who you are becoming. This is where the real battle begins, not with the world, not with people, but with the conditioned version of yourself that clings to familiarity like a lifeline. That version whispers, "You can change later." It tries to seduce you back into sleep, but a new voice has awakened within, sharper, calmer, anchored. It speaks with the authority of someone who has remembered their power. Not today. You sit up slowly. The air feels different, sharper, as if the morning itself is watching you decide who you will be. You place your feet on the ground with intention, not lazily, not automatically, but as a declaration, a planting of new roots. This small action sends a message through your entire being. The reset has begun. You move through your morning like a conscious architect. You notice everything, the light, the breath, the thoughts trying to pull you off course. And every time your mind slips toward autopilot, you interrupt it, gently but firmly, like a master reclaiming command of a ship that has been drifting for years. These interruptions feel small, almost insignificant, yet you sense their weight. These are the moments where new identities are forged. There's a clarity in your chest, a sharpening behind your eyes. You start to understand why the masses stay average, not because they lack potential, but because they never step into the battlefield of awareness. They never examine the invisible forces steering their lives. But you are no longer one of them. Something huge is shifting beneath the surface. A new standard, a new self-image, a new expectation for how your mind should operate. And with that realization comes your first revelation of the day. The mind does not control you. Unless you refuse to look at how it controls you, you breathe in steady. You breathe out certain. The reset has already begun. The day moves forward, but you move differently now, not as a passenger drifting through hours, but as someone who has begun to reclaim the helm. Yet with every step you take, a deeper realization appears. Awakening is not enough. Awareness cracks the door open, but transformation requires stepping through it. And this is where most people stop. This is where they retreat back into the familiar. But not you, not anymore. You begin to feel the old patterns trying to tighten around you, not aggressively, quietly, like soft hands pulling you back into routines you never questioned. A familiar urge rises. Check your notifications, escape into noise, numb the discomfort of consciousness. But you recognize it now. You see the impulse as it forms, long before it acts, and in that moment of recognition, you interrupt it again. This is pattern interruption, the most powerful, most underestimated force in the world of self-mastery. It is the strike that breaks the loop, the spark that resets a lifetime of unconscious repetition. Each time you disrupt an old habit, you weaken the identity that was built around it. Each interruption becomes a tiny revolution. You witness an internal battle unfolding. One mind wants comfort. The other wants control. One wants the old narrative. The other demands a new standard. And for a moment, the clash is exhausting. But then something remarkable happens. You begin to see the mechanics behind your own behavior. You see the moment a thought becomes an emotion, the moment an emotion becomes a habit, the moment a habit becomes a personality. And as you watch this chain reaction with clear eyes, the illusion crumbles. You are not your thoughts. You are the observer. You are not your habits. You are the architect. You are not your autopilot. You are the one who decides when it ends. This understanding hits you with the force of a lifetime's honesty. You've blamed circumstances. You've blamed timing. You've blamed luck. But beneath it all, there were invisible loops controlling your decisions, shaping your reality, defining your limits. And now, for the first time, you see them clearly enough to break them. You stand still for a moment, feeling the weight of the world fall away not because the world changed, but because you did. Consciousness feels like a light cutting through fog. You start to notice details you've never seen before. The way you react to stress, the moments you drift into distraction, the triggers that push you into old behaviors. But instead of judging yourself, you simply observe, without emotion, without resistance, without attachment. This is what Napoleon Hill meant when he wrote that self-discipline begins with mastery of your thoughts. And now you understand what he meant on a level deeper than words. Thought is the genesis. Action is the echo. You take a slow breath and watch the next urge rise to check something, to repeat something, to return to something familiar. But before it completes its cycle, you intercept it again. This time, it feels easier, cleaner, more natural, as if the mind is already learning your new command. A realization settles over you with quiet certainty. Every time you interrupt an old pattern, you rewrite a small part of your destiny. You continue walking, steady and aware, carrying a truth that only the 1% ever understand. Transformation doesn't begin with action. It begins with taking back the moments you used to give away. The hours stretch before you, and with each one you begin to understand something profound. The real battlefield is not outside you, it's within. Every goal you've ever set, every dream you whispered into the dark, every promise you made to yourself, all of them were quietly sabotaged by the silent programs running beneath your awareness. But now, with your mind stripped of illusion, you begin the rebuilding. You notice how different the world looks when you're fully present. The noise feels less overwhelming. The distractions lose some of their power. Even time moves differently, slower, clearer, as if the universe has widened the space between your thoughts so you can choose what comes next. This space is where your new identity will be built. You sit for a moment in silence, not to meditate, not to escape, but to observe. You watch your thoughts like clouds drifting across a sky that you now control. You feel the pulse of your desires, the subtle pull of your purpose, the quiet truth you've tried to outrun for years. None of it is loud, none of it is chaotic. It is simply there, waiting for you to stop long enough to hear it. This is where the 1% mindset begins, not in action, but in conscious reconstruction. You take out a notebook or open a blank screen and something unusual happens. The act of writing no longer feels like a task. It feels like blueprinting. You write the version of yourself you intend to become, not in grand cinematic declarations, but in precise details. How you think, how you move, what you tolerate, what you reject, what you do when no one is watching. This is not wishful thinking. It is identity installation. With every word, you are drawing a blueprint for a future self, a self who is disciplined, focused, awake, a self who does not drift, but directs. And as you write, you feel your mind aligning with these instructions, as if eager to follow a leader it has been waiting for. Then comes the resistance. A whisper, "This won't last." Another, "You've tried before." The familiar voice of your old identity begging for survival. But this time you don't argue. You don't negotiate. You observe. And then you replace the thought with a new command, "I am the one who decides now." Slowly, deliberately, you begin designing rituals to match the identity you're building. Small, repeatable actions, not heroic, not overwhelming, just precise. A 90-second awareness pause every time you feel yourself slipping. A conscious breath before reacting. A mental command before each major decision. Is this aligned with the person I'm becoming? You start to realize something extraordinary. Your brain isn't fighting you. It's waiting for direction. It has always been waiting. You walk to the mirror and look into your own eyes with a presence you've never felt before. Not harsh, not judgmental. Simply aware. A quiet truth echoes inside you. Change doesn't begin when you feel ready. Change begins the moment you become conscious of the person you refuse to be anymore. And in that reflection, in that silence, a new identity begins to rise. You move through the afternoon with a different kind of gravity, as if the world has shifted half a degree and only you can feel it. It isn't confidence, it's clarity. A sense that your mind is starting to obey you instead of dragging you through the day. But clarity brings with it a deeper challenge, one the average person never sees. The challenge of consistency. Awakening is a spark. Rebuilding is a blueprint. But consistency, that is where the 1% are made. You walk into a room and notice how noise tries to steal your focus. You feel the pull of old urges, the temptation of mindless escape, the gravity of familiar patterns. But now, instead of following them, you stand still. You observe the tug like a scientist watching a storm form on the horizon. You recognize that you are not fighting temptation, you are studying it. Awareness turns the once invisible enemy into something you can anticipate, redirect, and ultimately conquer. There comes a moment where you pause not because someone told you to, not because a book commanded it, but because your inner observer has grown strong. This pause is sacred. In it, you feel the old version of yourself growing weaker, like a shadow losing its shape under rising light. You feel the new version gaining presence, depth, authority. The next thought that rises in your mind is one you've experienced before, but today you see it differently. It says, "You can relax now, you've done enough." You know this voice. It is the great deceiver. It has stolen years from you under the disguise of comfort. It comes dressed in softness, but it destroys silently. You breathe in and let the thought pass through you without resistance. You do not obey. You do not argue. You simply remain aware. And then something powerful occurs. Your mind listens. It follows your silence the way a student follows a master. Each moment you remain conscious is a training session, a rehearsal for greatness. Slowly, your brain learns a new truth. Discipline is not punishment. Discipline is self-respect. You continue through the evening with an intentional presence that feels almost supernatural. Every step, every breath, every choice becomes a small victory over the old autopilot. This does not feel like motivation. It feels like awakening. By nightfall, you realize something profound. Consistency is not built in days. Consistency is built in moments, the moments where you choose awareness over habit. And for the first time, you feel the quiet pride of someone who has begun to master themselves. The next morning arrives not as a repetition, but as a challenge, a test. The universe always tests a mind on the verge of transformation. You wake with a heaviness in your chest, the weight of old memories, old failures, old versions of you trying to rise from the past. But instead of drowning in them, you sit up slowly, deliberately, as if rising from the ashes of yesterday. The first thought that greets you is familiar. Stay in bed a little longer. But you recognize it instantly. You smile not with arrogance, but with understanding. This is your old identity's final negotiation, a plea, a last attempt to hold on to the throne. You interrupt it with a deep, intentional breath. You swing your feet to the floor with purpose. This act alone is a declaration of war, a quiet war against the invisible forces that once ruled your life. As you begin your morning movements, you feel resistance. Not dramatic, not loud, but subtle, the kind of resistance most people mistake for their personality. But you know better now. You see that resistance is simply the friction of new identity formation. You move anyway, one conscious action at a time. Later in the day, you catch yourself slipping a moment of distraction, a familiar habit trying to return, a loop attempting to reclaim its territory. But now, instead of falling into it, you stop mid-motion. You freeze the loop. You witness the mechanics of your own mind and cut the pattern before it completes itself. This is mastery. This is mental sovereignty. As the day unfolds, a powerful insight settles into the center of your mind. Identity is not who you think you are. Identity is who your habits allow you to become. And today, your habits are no longer chosen by your past. They are commanded by your awareness. By evening, something inside you has changed. The fog that once clouded your mind is thinning. Your future no longer feels distant. It feels like a shape forming in your hands. You can sense it, the silent knowing that you are beginning to operate like the 1%. Not because you feel powerful, but because you finally understand that power is a choice. The shift becomes undeniable. The world feels slower, quieter, almost transparent, as if the noise that once controlled you has been reduced to nothing more than background static. You walk through your day with a sharpened presence, watching, sensing, choosing. This is the chapter where your mind begins to rebuild itself. You start recognizing patterns before they appear. You feel the moment your energy dips. You sense the instant your thoughts begin drifting. But instead of sinking into those old spirals, you guide your attention back with gentle authority. Each time you return your focus, you are teaching your mind who the leader is. You feel a subtle pride rising in your chest, not ego, but respect for yourself. Respect for the fact that you chose awareness instead of autopilot, discipline instead of drift, presence instead of passivity. People around you notice something different. They may not articulate it, but they feel it the way you move slower, think clearer, speak less, but with more purpose. You are not reacting anymore. You are creating space between the world's noise and your inner command center. This space becomes your sanctuary, your ground, your power, and then it happens the first moment of true mental reset. You catch yourself facing a familiar situation, one that used to trigger stress or discouragement, but today nothing happens. No emotional spiral, no mental collapse, no automatic reaction. Instead, you remain calm, detached, conscious. You have rewired the loop without forcing it. This is the moment Napoleon Hill spoke of, the moment when the mind becomes your servant instead of your master. A quiet realization washes over you. Your brain is no longer on autopilot. It is following your orders. And for the first time, you feel ready for more, not because you want comfort, but because you want growth. As the day deepens, you begin to access a state of awareness most people will never experience. A state where you observe not only your thoughts, but the structure behind them. You feel the hum of your subconscious patterns, the speed of your inner reactions, the rhythm of your emotional triggers, the architecture of your inner world. This is not surface level change. This is mental engineering. You begin to sense when a thought is useful and when it is noise, when a desire is real and when it is a distraction. This distinction becomes your compass. It is the mark of someone who has stepped into the 1% realm, not through effort, but through control. At one point, an old habit returns with surprising strength, a craving, an impulse, a familiar emotional pull. But instead of fighting it, you expand your awareness around it. You watch it, breathe into it, make space for it. And like steam escaping from a valve, the urge dissolves on its own. No resistance, no force, just presence. This is mastery, not suppression, but understanding. The evening grows quiet, and you feel a new truth settling into your bones. Autopilot was never your enemy. Unconsciousness was. Now you are conscious, not briefly, not occasionally, but consistently. Your mind bends to your command with increasing ease. For the first time, your future feels aligned with your identity. Your actions match your intentions. Your habits match your goals. Your thoughts match the person you are becoming. You end the day with a rare feeling inner alignment. The knowing that you are no longer fighting yourself, you are building yourself. The world outside grows quiet, and so does your mind. You sit alone, not in darkness, but in a soft, calm glow, the glow of a consciousness that has awakened from years of mental sleep. You are no longer rushing, no longer reacting, no longer pulled by invisible strings. You are here, fully, completely, unshakably present. This final chapter is not loud. It is peaceful. It is steady. It is truth. You reflect on who you were when this journey began, a passenger in your own mind, unaware of the silent loops directing your life. But now, you sit in the captain's seat, your hands steady on the controls that were always yours. Your breath slow, your awareness deepens, the noise inside you fades until only silence remains, a powerful, eternal silence that feels like standing at the edge of your destiny. In this quiet, you understand something sacred. The 1% mindset is not intensity. It is intention. It is not pressure. It is presence. It is not force. It is consciousness. You whisper the truth to yourself with calm certainty. I am awake now. This is not motivation. This is not hype. This is not a temporary shift. This is a new identity forged from awareness, grown through discipline, sealed through presence. You rise slowly, standing in the stillness like someone reborn. The world has not changed, but you have, and that changes everything. The era of autopilot is over. The era of conscious living has begun. And in the silence that follows, you feel it, a calm, eternal power humming in your chest. The power of someone who is finally, undeniably awake.